Welcome to yet another FPL video ahead of Game Week 13, where so much has happened since my last team selection video that I've decided to make an updated version where I explain my new transfer plan. So let's get straight into the video. So by the time you probably watch this video, Chilwell will probably be red instead of yellow, and reports have come out from the Telegraph that he has actually torn his ACL and he could be out for multiple months, and he's definitely out for the rest of the year. Now, if that is true, and to be honest it's looking very likely, then that is very significant because a lot of us were kind of settled on this four at the back: Chilwell, Reece James, Trent and Cancelo, and a lot of people were looking to actually go from Rudiger to Chilwell, for example, and some people have even made that transfer already early on into the week, and that's why sometimes it's very risky to make these moves because it can always backfire. And I'll be talking about the best replacements for Ben Chilwell also in the preview, but of course so much can change now because maybe you can go away from this big at the back and invest more into your midfield and attack. But then again, the defenders are offering such great value at the moment that do you want to do that? But to be honest, Chilwell was one of those kind of set and forget defenders, and now we don't really have him to rely on anymore. In terms of my team selection right now for Game Week 13, I wouldn't mind having Townsend coming for Chilwell and just sticking it that way, playing 3-4-3, and it wouldn't look too bad this week. But I do have 2 free transfers and I want to use them and not have them burn out, to be honest. So I'm going to be showing you some possibilities in terms of moving Chilwell on, and also how that impacts the other transfer plans I have in future game weeks as well. But happy to have Cancelo, Trent and James still at the back. Of course, it's a big shame that Chilwell is injured now, but it is what it is. You have to adapt to these situations, and it also is an opportunity to climb the ranks ahead of those who have Chilwell already. And my midfield as well, the news that's come out with Raphinha is that he's back in training. I talked about this in my transfer tips video. If you haven't already, check that out. And also Bamford is in training, so Leeds are looking much stronger all of a sudden. Rodrigo also back into the mix, so Leeds United could actually now start to have some assets that are worth considering, like Bamford and Raphinha. And as I said in that video, I think Raphinha is a good player to have over the next 3 game weeks, and the rest looks the same. Foden and Salah captain. Of course, we'll see what happens as well in the Champions League with Mohamed Salah. And then with the front line, Antonio, Vardy and Tony. Pretty happy with that. Of course, Harry Kane could come in. I'll be talking about that very soon, but pretty happy to keep Tony and arguably Antonio, although my patience is wearing thin with him, but I have a lot of faith in the Hammers forward and I think he can come good finally. And of course, he was very impressive in the first 3 game weeks of the season. Then looking at my bench, although I am happy to play Townsend this week, I just think that long term I just don't want him in my team, and if I look at it, he is the weak link, so I am more than happy to get rid of him. And then you look at Livramento, very tough fixtures coming up, including Liverpool away in Game Week 13, but also happy to keep him. He is a bench fodder option after all, and he's amongst the very best in terms of what he does. And Douglas Luiz is another kind of weakness in my team. He is out, but obviously he's just a bench fodder, and if I have enough depth across the rest of my squad, then I don't really need to worry about Douglas Luiz. And if I get a replacement for him, which ultimately it's going to be one of those kind of 4.5 million midfielders, unless I downgrade one of my strikers and then upgrade Douglas Luiz to, for example, a Jota or Bernardo Silva. In terms of the captaincy, Trent Alexander-Arnold has crossed my mind. Phil Foden's not a bad option, same with Jamie Vardy, and of course Reece James. Chilwell would have also been another good option, but I'm just going to stick with Mohamed Salah, I believe, although once again Trent, Vardy and James are very tempting. And of course Chilwell would actually have been a decent option against United, but for the captaincy maybe that's a bit too far, to be honest. And I think with Salah at home to Southampton, there's no need to overcomplicate that. So just to be clear with Ben Chilwell, it's not necessarily that he has torn his ACL, but there is suspected ACL damage, and it is stated in the article that Chilwell is set to miss out the rest of this year, and also Chelsea are waiting to find out with further tests and scans whether he's actually got a season-ending ligament damage or not. Let's wait and see what happens there, but for the time being, of course, if he's out for the rest of this year, he's out for over a month, and there's so many game weeks over this period that you just want to get rid of him, especially around this hefty price tag for a defender. So with Chilwell, you want to be looking for replacements, whether you go for a like for like. If you don't have Reece James already, now is the perfect excuse to go from Chilwell to Reece James. There's no doubt about that. And of course the same goes for Trent and also Cancelo. All 3 of them you want to have in your team, and to be honest, Rudiger as well. If you still have him, I actually wouldn't mind keeping him at this point. And of course, if you don't have Rudiger, a switch from Ben Chilwell to Rudiger is on the cards. Now, obviously, I said this on my Twitter, and I am kind of having second thoughts about it already. Going from Chilwell to Alonso seems simple, and it does on paper, but what we saw in the Champions League is Azpilicueta slotting in that left wing back spot, and that actually could be a common occurrence now. Azpilicueta is much more solid defensively than Alonso, so that is something else to consider when deciding if you want to get rid of Chilwell for Alonso or for Azpilicueta. Now, I probably wouldn't go for Azpilicueta at this moment in time until we know that he's kind of nailed, and if he is playing in that left wing back spot, he could be very good, and he did get 2 assists against Southampton from the right wing back spot, for example, only 1 or 2 months ago, and that could happen from the left wing back spot as well, but I would suspect he'd be a bit more defensive in that role compared to what Ben Chilwell was doing, of course, where he was pretty much playing as a left winger at times. So it's going to be a bit of a difficult one. I would personally suggest waiting before jumping ship on Alonso, because it can ultimately backfire. Alonso, you'd suspect, will get some game time, but will he be completely nailed as the left wing back? I'm not entirely sure about that. And for that reason, Reece James is the clear and obvious option. Same with Trent and Cancelo. And then in terms of Chelsea defenders, the only nailed defender other than James really, and honestly he's probably even more nailed at this point, is Antonio Rudiger. And other than that, I wouldn't really suggest any of these assets to replace Ben Chilwell. I would wait and see what happens with the United game and maybe another game or two before fully deciding, because Tuchel, he likes to rotate, and this could be a big conundrum, and whatever player you go for, that decision could cost you a lot of points one way or the other. Having said that, I'm trying to narrow down, at least in terms of my team, the kind of replacements for Ben Chilwell. Now, if I want to go for someone cheap, I would go for maybe Ben Johnson as a long-term purchase, someone who can sit on my bench as well and play the majority of games until Vladimir Coufal displaces him. Another option is Tariq Lamptey, who, to be honest, I'm not too keen on because he is injury prone, and whenever I get him in, he always seems to get injured very shortly afterwards. And of course, you could say that's kind of bias, based on your kind of experiences with the player, but he always gets injured, and that is a huge concern, of course. Another one around the kind of mid-price bracket is Sergio Reguilon, and I mentioned him in my transfer tips video, the buy, hold or sell, and he also could be another good option. And if I am looking for someone around that price, I think Reguilon could be the one to go for. And then otherwise, kind of like-for-like replacements, I think Antonio Rudiger is the safest, and if not, if Marcos Alonso is actually nailed and playing the majority of games like he was at the beginning of the season, then a simple switch from Chilwell to Alonso would be on the cards. And of course, you also could factor in Azpilicueta into that equation as well, but I think Alonso would definitely be the most tempting option. Alonso, we all know what he can do. He's done it this season, and of course in the 2016-17 season, playing as a left wing back, he could do immense damage, just like Chilwell. And if he is playing, then of course Alonso would definitely be my top replacement for him. But it's a big if. I don't think it's going to be as simple as we believe, and also as I believed at first. So that's going to be a difficult one. But any of those options I just mentioned, they could be replacing Chilwell. And one thing I am considering actually in terms of my new transfer plans is getting Gallagher in for Townsend and doing it this week, and then having 2 free transfers heading into game week 14, and that would actually give me more flexibility, because then I could move Chilwell to Johnson and Vardy up to Harry Kane, and I think that's probably the right time to get rid of Vardy, whether it's around game week 16 or 17 when the fixtures turn, or next week rather than this week where he faces Watford, and I think he could actually outscore Harry Kane and Heung-min Son. In terms of Harry Kane or Heung-min Son, Heung-min Son has offered better value for money this season, but in recent weeks, just like Harry Kane, he's just been blanking left, right and centre, 4 blanks in a row. And I actually think Kane has been looking livelier, especially in the Leeds game. And I would suspect Kane is going to be a great captaincy shout even in the coming weeks. I'm not so sure about Son. That doesn't mean he's not a good option, but in terms of the structure I want for my team, I want a premium striker to be able to kind of rotate between them across the season. I haven't changed my mind on that, despite how poor strikers have been and how disappointing they've been. But then you look at the midfielders, there are so many options around the budget price or the mid-price zone, like Jota, Bernardo Silva, Gallagher, Smith Rowe, etc. And that's why I want to go for Harry Kane instead of Heung-min Son. So ultimately, Townsend to Gallagher could happen this week, and then next week Chilwell to Johnson, and that would allow me to do Vardy up to Kane, 2 free transfers next week, and then over the coming weeks after that period, if Jota is still nailed in that team, I could get him in for either Raphinha or for Phil Foden, and then Bernardo Silva could come in to replace the other. And if not, I could also go for a Maxwell Cornet or an Emil Smith-Rowe. So I have plenty of options in the midfield to choose from, but that's kind of my thinking at the moment, getting a budget defender in for Ben Chilwell, and that allows me to get Harry Kane up front and then upgrade my midfield significantly, and it would look much better, as you can see on screen, compared to before. So a quick word on Diogo Jota. Since my last team selection video, it has been revealed, and I talked about this in my last few videos in FPL and UCL Fantasy. He has been training with Liverpool on the Tuesday, and he's now in the squad and on the bench against Porto at the time of recording, and Mohamed Salah is in the lineup. So let's wait and see what happens there, because a lot can change from the time of recording to when this video is published as well. And also in terms of Ben Johnson, I would rather have an 8 Nuri, for example, around 4.3 million. And with the squad you can see right now, I can afford it all and have 0.4 million left in the bank. But 8 Nuri has really poor fixtures from game week 14 onwards. But otherwise, I would rather have 8 Nuri than Ben Johnson. Let me know which other kind of budget defenders you would go for in terms of replacing Ben Johnson in this case, and that being the ultimate Ben Chilwell replacement. And remember, it's only 4.4 million available and below, but of course that's going to be a bit of a tricky one to navigate, to be honest. But that's kind of my transfer plans, my updated transfer plans, and I've kind of got a clear vision of what I want for my squad. Of course, Douglas Luiz is still a problem here. If Antonio keeps on blanking, he's another one I could also consider getting rid of. And I would love to have a Raul Jimenez, for example, for the next 2 game weeks in particular. But it's just impossible to make these kind of short-term moves when I've got Chilwell, who is potentially out for a very long time, and also other fires to put out in my squad. But thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, smash the like button and subscribe if you're new around here. Very much appreciate all the support. As I always say, good luck with Game Week 13, and let me know what your kind of situation is with Ben Chilwell, and also in terms of the rest of your squad, who are you looking to bring in and who are you looking to offload? Let me know down in the comment section below, and all the very best of luck as always, and I'll see you next time.